you definitely have to have that resiliency to keep going, to continue to want to know more, learn more, to continue to keep pushing forward when you're building anything, particularly when you're building a company and business.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Worldwide. Thank you for tuning in, for showing up, and for being here today. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. What are you looking forward to in 2021? And what are you going to be working on? Now, we've heard from many of you, and there's one area that a lot of you are asking about, and you still need some help. So this area is around funding. And that's the topic of today's show, securing funds, whether it's for your startup, maybe you need funding for the research you're doing, or maybe you need sponsorships. There is a process that you go through. And it just so happens that we have the perfect guest who has been through the funding process. So joining me on the show is Sevetri Wilson, and she is a serial entrepreneur. She is also somebody who knows how to raise funds for her business. She's raised over $10 million in venture capital. And she has two companies now, Resilia, which is a technology company based in New Orleans and has other offices in the United States, as well as Solid Ground Innovations, which is a strategic communications and management firm. That was actually her first company. And just a couple more things about Sevetri. She was just named in September of 2020 as a rising star on the Forbes Cloud 100 list. And in 2019, get this, she was named as one of Inc. magazine's 100 female founders building world-changing companies. So it is my pleasure to introduce Sevetri Wilson. Sevetri, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here and to talk more about my journey and raising capital and just building a business.
That's awesome. So somewhere along the line, Sevetri, I read that you were 22 years old, you had no capital, and you built a 7-figure company. So that is really very cool, quite impressive. So maybe you could just start off by sharing a little bit about the path to serial entrepreneur.
Yes. So I started my first company, as you mentioned, at 22, Solid Ground Innovations. We are a strategic communications and management firm. When I first started, I literally really wanted to consult and help individuals with their nonprofits. And so I was working for a large nonprofit called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, which is headquartered in DC, but they have offices all across the country. And I was working from the Baton Rouge, Louisiana office with stakeholder development. From there, it really just sparked my curiosity and interest in the nonprofit space. And from that moment, I began to understand, like, okay, there are so many organizations, there are individuals who are philanthropists who are looking to do good in society. And I began to formulate what became Solid Ground Innovations, which we began early on consulting foundations, consulting cities, consulting philanthropists on their giving initiatives and building out their curriculum and how they actually deploy capital.
That's awesome. So tell me, somewhere you did mention curiosity, right? Having curiosity in the nonprofit space. You know, as an entrepreneur and somebody who has raised so much money, is it your curiosity that is one of those characteristics that propels you forward, or what gets you to be able to go through even raising as much capital as you have? What other characteristics do you need?
Yeah, I think that there's no other explanation that we named the second company Resilia after the word resilient. We're from New Orleans, and just entrepreneurship alone, you definitely have to have that resiliency to keep going, to continue to want to know more, learn more, to continue to keep pushing forward when you're building anything, particularly when you're building a company and business. And so for me, definitely curiosity to want to understand more about a space, and then understand how I could build out my capabilities to serve my clients in a way that could see growth in their individual projects and their individual businesses and companies. And that really is kind of what was the impetus of what got me started. I do feel like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. No other reason why I would still be doing it now, almost 15 years later. But I am someone who's like driven by disruption and wanting to introduce solutions to old problems, and really build things with people who get to do a job that they love coming to, or now virtually showing up to every single day.
Well, it sounds like a lot of passion wrapped in there as well to keep going. So the resilience, the curiosity, the passion. Do you ever, I mean, being at the age of 22, when you first started out and seeking capital, did that ever hinder you in any way? Did you ever face any kind of resistance from the people who you were seeking funds from? I just know that back in my career, I had a baby face. And
Yeah.
walking into the boardroom, there would be several male executives that would say, "We're the executives of your firm." So was that ever a factor?
Yes, for sure. So my second company, Resilia, my first company, I bootstrapped solid ground, so we didn't raise any capital. And what I realized with my second company is that if we were going to build software, which is not cheap to build, if we we're going to try to essentially capture a sizable chunk of the market, that we weren't going to be able to do it like I previously had done it, and that was bootstrapping. Although I initially early on did invest a lot of my own money into the company, I knew that we were going to have to raise capital. Now, when I first went out to raise capital, I raised initial $400,000 of angel investment. And that was essentially me being able to go to the network that I had generally already built from my first
Sure.
business. So people were like, "Oh, well, you've had success in your first business, so I'm sure you could do it again. So we'll write you a $25,000 check or a $10,000 check." But my seed round, which I raised $2 million for, was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And it was difficult for a number of reasons. One, I'm in the South, I'm a female, I'm a woman of color, I was a solo founder. So I had like
Oh
everything
my
stacked.
gosh. Right.
I had everything stacked against me. And because I didn't come from the venture world, I came from a very traditional business environment, agency setting where I didn't raise capital. Previously, I didn't have the relationships. And so I began to understand pretty quickly, like there is a order or like game to be played, and I was not in the game, and I needed to get in the game
I
pretty
do.
quickly, or I wasn't going to be able to build this company.
Well, okay, so that there's a few questions from what you just shared. Raising angel investment, those private investments, when you went to the VCs, do they look at that as a negative or some kind of leverage that is over your business where they're less likely to fund you? Did that ever, I mean, I watched Shark Tank, and sometimes when, the people go in and the sharks are there and they say, "Oh, you already," the look on their faces, "Why didn't you say that before? That you have X amount out and you only owe a certain amount of shares for your business." Did that ever come into play?
So no, that didn't come into play with me. If you think about like Shark Tank, what the issue is there is that a lot of founders have given up too much of their company too early. And
Right.
so there isn't enough left in the company where new investors feel like, one, they can get enough, two, that the founder will be even still motivated with so little in their company. And the third thing is who controls the company when you've given
Right.
up more than the majority of ownership. For me, that wasn't the case because we raised an angel round on a good evaluation. We didn't give up a lot of our company to do so. And I still own majority of my company now after $11 million raised in total. And so
Fantastic.
we had we've had healthy funding coming into the business over 3 rounds. And so that's definitely been a plus for us. And the majority of startups usually raise some type of angel round from high wealth operators or high wealth individuals. And so that's pretty normal. What's not normal was giving up 70% of your business in an angel round.
Yes. So being a woman, you mentioned being in the South, a woman of color, you're also in tech is tough sometimes for women to break that glass ceiling. Was there anything in the process that stands out or advice that you want to give to other women just to recognize if they're moving into the VC space that you want to share?
Yes, I think that it's so important to put people around you that know what you don't know. I think that's something that I began to do, but wish I had done it even before I started raising capital, because I think it would have saved me a lot of time and frustration. And I think particularly with women, if you're going out to raise capital, and you're going to be frustrated just because you're going to be like, okay, it's everything that they said it was, as far as like how difficult, how senseless some of the questions are that women get when they're raising capital. And so you're going to feel all the feelings,
Right.
and you don't want to become jaded by it. You want to just try to keep focused and keep moving forward. And I think by having advisors or mentors or even other founders who kind of done it and went through that to prep you for it, I think you'll ultimately just do better in the long run.
So when you were raising your first 2 million, was it you alone approaching a venture capitalist, or did you actually assemble a team to help you? And I think this is important for women to know if they should rely on advisors who then give you the information and send you in a loan, or you actually take a team with you.
So I went at it alone. Like if you're going into an investor pitch, they expect for you and if you have a founder, no one else to be in the
Right.
room pitching. And so for me, it was me going in alone, but I don't think that I was alone in like crafting my pitch deck, and getting feedback, advice, getting introductions. I wasn't alone in that instance, but when you're actually going into those rooms and you're pitching, you're definitely going to feel like, okay, it's me against everybody else in the room. And I'm trying to get my story across, opportunity, market, all of these things. And I have this one shot, right, to capture their interest and then pique further interest where they continue the path to diligence. And so that's kind of what most entrepreneurs are trying to get to when they go into a pitch room.
So when they evaluate you, are there 1, 2, 3 top things that you think a VC is looking for that you want to put forward? And if there are, can you share that?
So 3 key things that I would say is your story, your founder story. So is it compelling enough to capture an investor's interest? 2, the market size. So is there a large enough opportunity for an investor to want to put capital behind? And then thirdly, your team. So who you have pulled together and assembled to work with you on this big idea or this big company that you're seeking to build.
This is fascinating. Thank you for answering that question. I think that's interesting, and probably there are a lot of other people out
Yes.
there asking the same thing. Name a proudest moment in business, and then name maybe a challenge that you still face.
So I would say one of my proudest moments would definitely be being able to, one, open up our office and begin to grow out our team. I think that building a team culture, there's so many ins and outs to building a team culture, but actually seeing everyone come together, collaborate, contributing ideas, all towards this aligned mission, has been one of my greatest achievements. And I think that everything that I've gone through, everything that I've raised and put together, it was like one of those moments, right? Even like we have a team retreat this week, and how we're all coming together, it wouldn't have been possible throughout the journey, that came up to this point.
It's amazing. What are you doing for your retreat? What does a retreat look like in the days of COVID?
So it's virtual. We
Yes.
are virtual, and we have team members kind of like all over the place now. But we are coming together for 2.5 days. We essentially run a 4.5, 5-hour retreat schedule where we have everything from presentations from team members to fireside chats from operators from other companies that can bring insights and just have an objective opinion, right, about the business and how to build a SaaS subscription model. And so, yeah, we have someone coming in to talk about D&I on tomorrow. We're all positioned there, talk a little bit about their book. Amber Cabral, and she's like amazing in the D&I space and has worked from small startups to Fortune 100 companies. And so really excited about what we're positioning and overall doing a retro for 2020, and then looking ahead to 2021.
Excellent. It speaks to your culture, the learning, the curiosity. That's awesome. Any challenges? Is it hard to put something like that together, even just using technology and working remotely?
Yes, I think that because we're an early stage startup, an ideal scenario, we would all kind of be in person. We would be able to have, side talks. We'll be able to like prepare. Like this time around for a retreat, we won't have a dinner, right? That we all get together afterwards. And so that's definitely probably the harder part of now living in like a virtual world where you don't have that human contact. And but we are making the most of it. So we have figured out ways to do like virtual Jeopardy, and we're having a family feud night. And so
That's really fun.
we're making the most of it.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about staying. You've done so much. I think I even read somewhere that you are a published author, that you have a book. So here you are building your companies, working on the culture, your people, you're raising money, you've written a book. How do you stay focused and centered? And all of this, takes so much. So what are you doing so that you can stay on point and really be present?
So I am definitely a big fan of various different practices, but one that I adopted probably a year and a half ago, and that is just the mindfulness and meditation practices. And so my good friend Summer, who's also an entrepreneur, she introduced it to me. Another friend of mine, Jason, introduced Muse, which is like a headset for beginners. And that has really allowed me to, when I feel kind of like scattered, refocus and recenter. I'm also a big proponent of like telling my team to like take a day off or take time off so that they can do the same. And I think once I hone in even further around ways we can do that even in this virtual world, I think I'm always thinking of ways like how can we continue to ensure our team has not only physical health, but also mental health. And so I try to also practice some of those same things.
Yeah, that's really important. So do you think that the mindfulness, the meditation helps more in the lessening of the stress? Is it the clarity of the thinking? Where does it help you the most? Or does it make you a better problem solver? Does it actually help you to solve problems? Because no matter what, when you're in business, there are issues.
Yeah, I think that something Oprah once said, which I kind of connect to meditation and mindfulness, is that when you're trying to figure out something out, that the next best thing is to become really still. And from there, think about making the next best step, right? The next best move, then the next best move after that. And I think that recentering, and whether that's through the practice of meditation, yoga, whatever it is,
Right, walking outside in nature helps.
walking, yes, all of those things, it helps you to just like refocus and really push out some of the noise that may be generating inside of your own head or around you. And so I think about that Oprah quote about just becoming still and recentering yourself to think about what's the next best move.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to remove all the external chatter, sometimes the technology. I mean, as an entrepreneur, it can, as much as we love technology and rely on it, there's so many messages bombarding us that your mind does get cluttered. So to be still, to find that peace for the moment does get you back on track. Absolutely. Well, I can't even believe I'm going to ask you the parting question. Can you, maybe, you've given great advice already, but is there any parting advice that you want to give to the Women Worldwide Network?
Yeah. So if I had to say one word of advice is to just keep going. And I say that, and it's so like stereotypical keep going, but I say that because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen next week, or you're never going to know what's going to happen next month. And one thing about my career, which has been full of ups and downs and roller coasters, is that when I thought I had missed out on an opportunity, when I felt like I was passed over for something, fast forward a couple months or even a year or 2 years later, something happened that made me think back to that moment where I felt at like my lowest point. And I realized it was all for this. And so that's why I just want to really press upon anyone that's listening, to just keep going, because you never know when your breakthrough is going to happen. And it's most likely right in front of you. You just can't quite see it.
That's interesting. It's almost keep going because it might not happen on your time frame, but if you stay focused, the universe delivers. That's
Yeah.
awesome advice, Sevetra. Last question, super easy. Where can people find out more about you and your work and your companies?
Absolutely. So you can definitely visit me via my website. It's my first and last name, SevetriWilson.com. Same on any social platform, Sevetri Wilson, on LinkedIn, IG, Twitter as well. Resilia, definitely follow Resilia on our platforms and go to resilia.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We're always pushing out great information and resources. So that's the best way to stay in touch with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your journey, and a lot of great advice. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you to all of you for tuning in and for always being here with us. So please keep the conversations going and the feedback coming. We love hearing from you. And if you want to receive Women Worldwide updates, you can go to womenworldwideshow.com. Okay, friends, until our next episode, be safe and stay focused, energized, and feeling empowered. Thank you.